But anyway, Kelley, we got one more call that I think we should take here at the tail end of the show. We got Gabreil calling in from Canada. A lot of the Canucks calling in tonight. Gabreil, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm I kind of forgot about all the news that happened, and now I'm thinking about it again, and I'm like, man, what a week. It's crazy.
Yeah, what a week, yes. How about your co-host? How are you? What was your name again?
Kelley.
Yeah, Kelley. Hi.
Hi.
What's up, Gabreil? How can we help you? You're live on the air right now, so.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you about conspiracy theories and comparing them with class theories like Marxism and things like that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, tell me more about that. What do you mean?
If we go by conspiracy theories, I'm talking about of the likes, there's some secret groups controlling the government, either aliens, reptilians, or if we go by far-right things, it could be Jews or other things like that.
The deep state.
So,
yeah.
So that's something that I think should be differentiated from class theories, like from a ruling class ruling over an exploited class. And maybe you can see there are some things that are correspondent to each other, like a small group over the population. But what do you think could be different? What do you think the big difference is between like this theories of classes and conspiracy theories? Like, why some go to one instead of the other?
Okay, that's a really, really, really interesting question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before, Kelley. I don't know if you have either. So when we talk about like Marxism, right? We're talking about a historical lens, an analysis, a tool to look at history, which I think is different from other kinds of conspiracy theories, right? So like taking the New World Order, for example, or the deep state. This is an idea that says, oh, well, the world governments are controlled by an elite few that have manipulated the events of history. The problem with that idea is that beyond that description, it doesn't go into specifics onto the mechanisms of how that's done, right? So there are some people that will say, oh, well, they do this through programming and all these other things, but they're very nebulous, and they can't point to specific institutions that actually make these events happen, because I mean they're not real, right? Like they're just kind of made up. Whereas when you look at an idea like Marxism, or really any other kind of historical lens, talking about not just class theory, but other theories of historical, like great man theory. That's what I'm thinking of. Other lenses of history that kind of view events. Yes, they're self-referential, and sometimes they can kind of come with conclusions that they've already reached to in their premises, but they can at least describe specific mechanisms as to how that happens, right? So like Marxism talks about class consciousness and class theories as descriptions of different elements of history, right? Like that's just a historical lens that you can use, whether or not the people of those times viewed that historical reality themselves. The mechanisms are the same. It's through monetary value, right? You can actually make an analysis and look at and say, oh, this class of people actually owned all of the land in this area, or had most of the wealth in that society. And you can look at that through historical data and actually come to a conclusion. Whereas, again, New World Order types, deep state types, there's no real data that they're looking at. There's no real stuff that they can sift through. It's just ideas put out there. So well, I wouldn't call Marxism a science, as some folks do. There is a bit more like credibility to it than your average basement conspiracy theory, I guess. I don't know. What do you think about that, Gabriel?
Yeah, I think it would be like a framework, a
Right.
tool to analyze history, and not necessarily a science.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
and so
Yeah, it's like critical race theory is another one, right? Where you can look at the historical lenses and see the truths that come out of making certain assumptions about history. Like that provides results. Saying, "Oh, this was all the New World Order," that doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah, and why do you think that some people go for one instead of the other? Do you think it has to do with education or
Yes.
their surroundings?
Or perceived losing out. I think that's a lot of it, where people feel that they've lost out on something in life, so they attach themselves to these conspiracy theories because they need an excuse for why their life hasn't turned out the way they thought it should have turned out. I'm not rich because of those guys over there that have been plotting against me. They're plotting against all of us, right?
Yeah. Humans like quick heuristics. I mean, they like quick methods of dividing categories up and figuring out quick answers to complicated problems, right? So like it's no secret that like white supremacists in our society are generally very uneducated, and what I mean uneducated is that they don't have the same level of education that other people higher in the country do, but also there is a class relations going on there. Like you can also point to people who have a general belief in particular conspiracy theories tend to not be on the wealthiest sides of the country. Now, of course, there's great exceptions to that. Pretty much all of Trump's lawyers, who think that the deep state is a thing, and they're all practicing lawyers. I don't know how that works, but they do, and they talk about the election fraud and stuff. Whether they sincerely believe it or not, there is a through line, and that's not to also point out that there is a through line between religion and class as well. Like it's uncomfortable. Like atheists tend to not bring this up because it's kind of harsh, because we don't want to call people who believe in religion stupid. And obviously there's plenty of academics that have religious belief, but the data does show that the more religious you are, you tend to be on the lower prongs of society. Like that, I think that's true for pretty much every country on earth, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I do think it's an education thing, but like when I was a Christian, I grew up in a middle class home, and I my parents were pretty okay. I went to a really great school. I was taught though great critical thinking skills. I actually went to a great public school district, and eventually went to college. So I had that privilege of being able to get those tools to figure out what's true from them. And a lot of people don't have that. So it is kind of a privilege issue, I think.
And do you think that maybe those who ascribe to those type of conspiracy theories, that maybe through education we could get them to adopt maybe some form of Marxism, and from there they can maybe start questioning the current status quo, and maybe join the progressive left, and from there,
I mean, so
that's possible, or?
So here's the thing about education, right? The difference between education and propaganda is a thin line sometimes, because what people perceive to be true can often have political associations to it that some people may or may not subscribe to. So it's very difficult. I mean, obviously, right? If you grew up in an area of the world that, let's say, you grew up in China, I don't know. I don't know if it's a great example. I have no idea what the Chinese education system looks like. But I bet they talk about the history of the Chinese Communist Party, and obviously they have to talk about Chinese history in the 20th century, right? And I'm sure they paint a very different picture of what that looks like compared to U.S. schools or European schools, right? And so like they probably have a different point of view of the world because of their education. So yeah, I mean, like what you grow up with is going to change it. Yeah, I mean, should we do the same thing? I mean, yes, but like, what do we teach that's different from other people? Obviously, I believe in critical thinking. I believe in science. I believe in these things. Like, but there's lots of places that teach that, and some people will go to these conspiracy theories anyway. So it's not an end all be all solution either, you know.
Yeah. Mhm.
So
And
I don't know. It's
what do you
complicated.
think, Kelley?
Again, I think that a lot of I don't know that we can tie Marxism or anything like that in with the conspiracy theories, and I don't think that, as Dan said, that educating people to how Marxism works is going to get us any closer to instituting a society that is more socialistic in bend. Um, I I think you're going to have a lot more social hurdles to get over besides
Yeah.
just education.
Mhm.
You're going to have to change the way people think. I mean, and that's more than just educating them. It's,
Right.
as Dan said, that line between education and propaganda is really thin.
Yeah.
I also think the only deep state in America right now is depression. So
Yeah, I mean, look, when I was in school, right, I didn't get a history of the Republican Party. Well, actually, that's not true. You kind of get a history of political parties and stuff, but like, I wasn't taught deep modern Democratic ideology or modern Republican ideology, right? I understood, like, when I went to government class, like some points of view there, but I wasn't taught one was right from the other, and yet people in my class and everywhere around America still grow up thinking one way or another either way, right? Like what it can influence you and what can change your mind is how you present historical events. Like the Civil War is a very popular topic in this country because there's a part of the country and part that I grew up in that have a very different narrative about the Civil War, about how it was about states' rights and not about the slavery of Americans, which is not true. I mean, it was states' rights, but it was about slavery. Like that's it's a big fact. So like
yeah,
that can
it,
influence your politics, you know?
it was about the state's right to own
Mhm.
slaves, right?
Yeah, states' rights own slave. Yeah, I mean they make it seem like it's about other stuff, but that was like the big thing. So anyway, historical events and how you perceive it, that will definitely influence your political ideology. But like I don't know if just teaching straight up, hey, Marxism exists is gonna like make more people. I mean, I guess it would inherently make some people more Marxist, right? Because they know what it is. But that by itself, I don't know if that's enough. Anyway, interesting questions, Gabriel, but we do have to ramp up the show. Thank you
Yeah,
so much
no
for
problem.
calling on
Yeah,
in.
yeah, great
Thanks
call.
for having
Yeah, of course.